Hi everyone, welcome to Empty Nest Creations. My name is Wendy. I am the owner and creator here. Thank you so much for joining me today for this video. So to start off, I want to say, yay! I made 1,000 subscribers last week, so I'm super excited about that. It's been a real busy week around here. I've been prepping for a craft show. And just trying to keep my booth up to date as well and get all these little projects done. So it's been a really fun week. But the icing on the cake was reaching that 1,000 subscribers. So thank you so much for all of you who subscribed, who've commented on my videos, liked my videos. That has really helped. So keep it up. I really appreciate it. And as promised, I'm going to do a giveaway. So the way the giveaway is going to work is make sure you're subscribed, like this video, comment on this video, and let me know in the comments that you did those things. And then next Friday, I will pick a winner out of everyone who leaves me a comment, okay? So the prize is going to be an IOD product, and you will get your choice of a holiday themed IOD product or something from the summer release. So it just depends on what you want. And I'll let you kind of know when I message you what I have to offer, and I will ship that to you. So I'm super excited about that. I will announce who the winner is on my next video. And if you win, I will private message you. So if you are not on Facebook, just send me an email and let me know. My email will be in the comments below, and just let me know how I can contact you if you're the winner. Okay. So for today's video, Sonnet's Gardens Blooms creative group recently did a Deck the Chair video series, and I was super inspired by that. And then I was watching the Painted Photographers live video on Wednesday, and she encouraged others to join in and to, if they were a video creator, to take a stab at decorating a chair for Christmas. And so I have a really special chair. And as I was watching all of their videos, I already thought, I'm going to use my special chair. My chair is a chair that belonged to my grandparents. It was part of their dining room set. And they got married in 1929. And my grandfather's dad, so that would be my great grandfather, made their table out of reclaimed wood, and the chairs were previously owned. So even my great grandfather was thrifty. And so I guess I have a heritage of thriftiness. So this chair that I'm going to be using is one that we sat in as children at all the holiday dinners at my grandparents' house. And one of my cousins has the table, but they didn't want the chairs. So at one of our family reunions a couple years ago, they let each of us take a chair home. So a lot of us have one of these chairs. And so I'm not painting it. I'm not doing anything to it. The paint that is on it was put on there by my grandmother. So it's going to stay exactly like it is. So I've got a couple of projects that I'm going to use to decorate my chair. So let's jump into project number 1. So for project number 1, I'm going to be making a banner to go on the chair. I used some tags that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. Now I forgot to film, or didn't, I don't know what happened. I didn't turn the camera on or something. But anyway, I taped these tags together so I'd have one solid piece. And then I put a coat of chalk paint on the front and put this paint inlay down. I apologize for missing the process here, but I will do another one in the next project so you can see the whole process. So I've just misted the back of the the inlay, and I'm going to remove the inlay. Now you can see that I've used this one previously. This is the first time I've used an inlay for the second time, and part of it had not been used and part of it had been used, so I get a really unique finish on these tags, but that's fine. Once we take them apart, it looks really good and rustic, which is what I wanted. So you do want to let this dry and then use a spray sealer, or you can brush on a sealer, but you have to be really careful not to smear the paint. I've already smeared it up in that top corner. So once it was dry, I took it outside and gave it a spray of sealer. And then I'm going to take these all apart, remove the tape from the back, and I'm going to use an IOD stamp set to stamp the word Jolly on here. Now, the O was too wide to fit my tag. So what I'm doing is I'm going to put tape on the tag. And I'm going to tape half of the tag so that I only stamp half the O at a time. And that way I can kind of squeeze it in and make it fit. So I'm going to put this tape down the middle of my tag, and then I will stamp half of the O and let that dry, and then I'll come back and stamp the other half. So I'm just using tape to cover up any of the painted section to make sure I don't get ink anywhere that I don't want it. And then I'm going to lay my stamp down and just rub it, hold it with one hand and rub it with the other, and then lift straight up. That gives you a really good impression. And then I'll let that dry while I stamp the other letters, and then we'll come back and do the second half of the O. So you'll see that as I go, I'm using a wet wipe to just wipe off my stamps. This just makes sure that you get the ink off and it doesn't dry on there and contaminate it the next time that you're stamping. So if I wanted to use a different color next time, that black isn't going to come through because I wiped it off while it was still wet. I am using IOD ink, and IOD ink is permanent. So you can wipe it off while it's wet, but once it dries, it is permanent. So now that half of O is dry, so I'm going to come back in. I taped over that, and I'm going to stamp the other side of the O. You see here I'm having difficulty with my stamp sticking because it got some dust on it from the table. So you want to make sure you're working on a clean surface, but I just wiped it off, and then it stuck just fine. And I'm lining that up with the other half of the O. And you see there now we have a skinnier O that fits. So this is a piece of banner string that I've used in the past. And I just strung on 3 beads, and then I tied 2 knots with a little space in between. And that's where we're going to put our letters. So, and this is a banner that I can take these letters off and put something else on after the holidays are over. So I can use this banner string multiple times throughout the year. And then just store these letters away and pull them out next year and use them again. So I'm just putting some jute twine on here and doing a little slip knot at the top. And I'll do that on each letter, and then I will tie them to the banner. So this banner does end up being a little too big, too long for my chair. So you'll see it in one location at the beginning of this video, and it will be somewhere different at the end of the video. So now that they're all have their string, I'm going to tie them on, And I'm just going to tie a little knot, attaching it to the string. And then I will just cut off the extra jute twine. And I do that for each of the letters. This is just a really simple banner. You could add more stuff to it if you wanted to. You could add some ribbon, you could add some bells, whatever you want. But I just wanted to keep this really simple for this project. So now we're going to attach this to our chair. So here is the empty chair. My grandmother painted this blue, and it was previously white. And this chair is 100 years old or more. It's very well loved. This is real vintage, worn out paint. Which is why I didn't want to do anything to it. So I just put a little throw blanket over the back of the chair and then hung the banner on. And you see it's a little too long for this because it hangs so low. So if you were going to hang it on the back of the chair where you could see it sitting at the table, that would be great. But we're going to do something different with it later on in the video. So now we're going to move on to project number 2. And in this project, I'm going to refinish a little tin. So I took this tin outside and I gave it a good coat of white spray paint to just cover up any of the rust and damage that was on the outside of this piece. And now I'm coming in with some just red chalk paint. This is Waverly chalk paint. And I'm going to give the entire piece 2 coats. Now, this tin, the lid sits inside the base and it doesn't overlap on the outside. So I could paint that rim and not have to worry about the lid scratching the paint off. If this lid was actually on the outside of the base, I wouldn't have painted that top rim. I would have just left it white so that the lid wouldn't scratch the chalk paint off. I'm going to give this 2 coats, like I said, and we're going to use another paint inlay for this project. So I'm putting this little piece of painter's tape directly across from that back seam. That's just so I'll know where the center is when I get ready to put my inlay on the front of this tin. So here I'm going in with just a quick second coat. It had really good coverage over that white spray paint. So I'm just giving it a really quick second coat here. And you do want to have fresh, wet paint for your inlay. So I'm going to mist the paint side of my inlay. And I'm going to show you that it's been misted there. And then I'm going to center it on that tape and just lay it in that wet paint. Now you do have a few seconds to work with it. That paint does start to transfer pretty quickly, so you want to work fast. And I'm going to mist the outside of that paper and then just continue to work laying that paint inlay down into that wet paint. You want to make sure that it's touching everywhere so that that paint can transfer into the wet paint. And I'm just using my towel to do that. Now set that aside to dry and we're going to work on the lid. And again, I'm just going to give this 2 coats of paint. You can see that that lip on that lid is up instead of down because it sits down inside that tin. So this is the second coat, and I'm finishing putting that on the top, making sure I have a nice wet layer of paint there to put my inlay in. And we're going to mist that inlay paint, the paint side of the inlay, and then lay it down into our wet paint. And I'm going to mist the outside, and then I'm just using my paper towel there to press that paint inlay down into the paint. Now once it's dry, it looks like this, and you mist it again, and you want to make sure that you mist everywhere. And then I'm just going to come in and blot off the extra water and give it a few seconds to kind of work its way through that paper, and then you start to remove it. If you get any resistance, just wet it again and then peel that inlay off. And we got a nice rustic image. There's some texture to this tin. It's not even all the way across, so you're not going to get a perfect inlay. Now this one comes out pretty crystal clear. So I'm just working on getting that corner lifted up, and then there you go. Beautiful inlay. Now you can see where the paper of the inlay was, so I'm just going to go in with my paintbrush and do a little pouncing around the edges to just kind of, camouflage where that inlay was. I took this out and gave it a spray coat of sealer and added it to the chair. I think this vintage look on this tin works perfectly with this old chair. And with that, we're going to move on to project 3. Now this project, I'm using a clay pitcher that I picked up at the thrift store, and I gave it a good coat of white spray paint. And we're going to use some molds on here. And so I'm using the Magic casting resin here. This is the resin that sets up in about 10 minutes. And you're just going to mix equal parts of A and B together. And then you stir that really well. And then you pour it into your mold. Now, these molds have the measurements for each mold marked on there, so you know exactly how much resin it's going to take to fill these molds, which makes it really easy to get an accurate pour. And so now that it's set up, it's really pliable when it first is set. So I'm going to remove this from the mold, and then I'm going to take that casting and form it to my pitcher. And I'm just laying it on there. It's kind of sticky when you first take it out, so it kind of sticks to the pitcher while I'm working on getting this other mold out. And then I just lay it down, and I'm going to press on it and just kind of hold it down for a few minutes to make sure that mold molds to the outside of this pitcher. Now I'm using Tite Bond Quick and Thick, I think is what it's called. And I'm just going to glue those castings down and let them dry. And then I'm coming in with some milk paint. And I'm going to give this a coat all over. I'm giving it 2 coats. This is the Sweet Pickins milk paint in the color Basil. And I'm going to give this piece 2 good coats. I'm going to use my heat tool in between coats to encourage some crackling. I really love this milk paint. I love the finish that it gives. I'm painting this to match the cake plate cover that I made in my last video. So I'm using the same milk paint on the base coat, and then I'll do a very similar finish on the holly and berries. I won't say the same because hand painted things are never the same, but it's going to be pretty close. It'll look like a matching set. So you can see that that second coat really covers really well and gives us a nice dark finish, which is what I was after. I wanted this to match that cake plate cover. Now, I didn't paint the inside. I left the inside plain, so if someone wants to use this as a vase, they can. It's not food safe, but they can use it to put a flower arrangement or something in if they want to, because I didn't do anything to the inside. So I'm coming in with some fusion paint, and I'm going to give these holly leaves a good coat of this darker green paint. And then I'll come back in with some yellow and give some highlights to these leaves. So these are very detailed, but this kind of painting is fun for me. I really enjoy it. It's relaxing. So you could leave this all one color and wax it, or you could, do something more detailed like I'm doing here. And you could get even more detailed than I'm doing. So here I'm coming in with that yellow. I'm putting another coat of that green on there, and while it's wet, I'm just going in with some yellow and adding some highlights. Now these look very yellow to start off with, but as that paint dries, it kind of settles down. You can see there it's not quite so yellow. Now, just like on my cake plate cover, I'm going to paint these berries, some of them white and some of them red. I had never done this before on a piece, but as I was painting the cake plate cover, I just thought I'd decorate with some picks that have red and green, red and yellow, or red and white berries on them. I'm very tired. My words are not coming. But I have decorated with the red and white berries together. So I thought, why not paint red and white berries on these pieces? And I love this look. I think it looks really nice. So let me know in the comments below what you think about it. And here I'm coming in with the red. And again, these are fusion paints that I'm using. You could use any paints really, because you're going to seal this in. Milk paint does need to be sealed, so I will give this a coat of spray sealer. You could use a brush on sealer, you could use a spray sealer, you could use wax. Any of those will work to seal in this milk paint. But if you don't have fusion paints, you can always use acrylic paints. So here's the finished picture. I love the way this turned out. Look at that crackle. So pretty. I just think this turned out gorgeous. And it matches the cake plate cover so nicely. Now this chair needed a few more items. So I'm going to pull out some of my Santa mugs and add those. You see here I moved my banner down to the base of the chair. That way you can see it. It was kind of hidden because it was hanging so low that the other items hid it. So here I've added these 2 vintage Santa mugs, added some greenery to those. And that's it for this project, y'all. I just love the way this turned out. thank you to Sonnet's Garden Blooms creative group. This was a wonderful idea. It was a lot of fun to work on this project. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and comment below to enter the drawing for a prize. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.